Thank you, Mr. Moore. Appreciate this time and the opportunity to expound upon very important topics that we face across the board, whether it's today's legislation or ongoing discussions. So I wanted to touch a little bit this afternoon on the situation with Secretary Mayorkas and the Biden administration that are willfully and systematically ignoring our nation's laws, which are foregoing national security, diminishing our national security. Of course, I'm talking about the border situation. How the President and the administration continue to get away with ignoring the sieve that our border is, the hundreds of thousands coming across. You could put the number at over 7 million over the full time over 3 years. It's probably hard to really estimate what it is. Yet people coming in this country, on the terminology, let's say migrants, or even in some cases by the administration, newcomers. Why these euphemisms? People breaking and entering into this country illegally and undermining its security, undermining our systems of services, etc. So early on in this session, House Republicans passed a bill known as H.R. 2, which is one of the strongest border security packages ever in history of the House. And it holds the administration accountable for this colossal failure we see every day. Eagle Pass, all along Texas, all along Arizona, New Mexico, California. So what is the outcome from Secretary Mayorkas? Well, the House in its wisdom decided to move forward with an impeachment. Now, that hasn't been delivered to the Senate yet. I think timing is everything, and the Speaker in his wisdom decided a little more time was correct before those documents are delivered and the Senate is looking at taking it up. Hopefully they will. Hopefully Leader Schumer doesn't just try and brush it under the rug, because there's serious charges here, and the track record of the Secretary and the whole Biden administration on this certainly bears the discussion, certainly bears the information that has come out and will continue to come out in an impeachment process. So as well, whatever happens with that impeachment, whatever the timeline is, we still have H.R. 2 sitting over in the Senate waiting for action as well. And again, in order to tighten up our own border and properly handle the laws we already have on the books. We don't need a lot of new legislation. We just need to define better, it looks like, because this administration doesn't seem to, on what asylum really means, on the policies that had been in place before that were working reasonably well. But under Mayorkas' leadership, we would have over 9 million illegal immigrant encounters nationwide, 7.4 million encounters at our southern border, and then 1.8 million known as gotaways that have gotten away from the Border Patrol, and that's the ones we know about. Okay, immigration judges have thrown out approximately 200,000 cases because the DHS did not properly file the required notice to appear paperwork by the time of the scheduled hearing. Did they purposely blow that DHS, so they could say 200,000 of them didn't have the proper paperwork to appear, and those are now permanent getaways? It's a pretty wild coincidence. 200,000. And on top of that, and this is my personal opinion, do they have the same rights on this type of legal question as well? I mean, that the timeline expired and they didn't get the right paperwork. They're still illegally in this country. Again, not migrants, they're illegal aliens that have broken into this country. So we have the Biden administration's far-left open border policies are what is to blame for this historic crisis. Over 60 instances of the Biden administration taking actions that have undermined our nation's security, including halting the construction of the border wall. That's why I said 60 different actions. You know, was it just to unwind what Trump did because he doesn't like Trump? I had a recent visit down south of the Tucson area near a place called Naco, Arizona, and you can still see what looked like probably a mile in either direction of the metal material there that was being used at the time to construct the border fence. Piles and piles of giant girders of steel there. And I could look up close. I could show you pictures where it's marked on there, October 2020. The date of it is still marked there, of the material laying there. President Biden, about a year and a half ago, made some mention like, well, maybe we'll start putting that back up and fill in some of the gaps on a different trip to Arizona where closer to a dam. You see all these different gaps. So miles of fence, but there's gaps in it. Well, the people coming in, since they're being welcomed by our government, can just find any one of the gaps in the fence and be picked up. We're sending vans to go pick them up so we can get them processed sooner and cut them loose, with the idea that they might come back within 2 years or whenever the court date would be, except for DHS screwed up the date and lost 200,000 of them because they didn't give them the required notice to appear. So in the meantime, we're trying to hustle them into the country as fast as possible through the actions of Biden's directives with border personnel. So they announced on May 10 of last year that it would allow for some release of migrants in the U.S. with no way to actually track them. The Department of Homeland Security has now admitted that 40% of catch and release migrants have just flat disappeared into the country. The Senate must hold the trial for Secretary Mayorkas' impeachment because he needs to be held accountable. You can't just ignore our laws like that and make a joke out of it. This is, again, our security, the fentanyl that's coming in, the people that are going to be part of terrorist cells that are known, the people that they have caught and turned away from very questionable, very dangerous associations. So this is no joke. This is no just, shouting in the wilderness. This is very real. And how, again, this administration continues to get away with it blows my mind, and a lot of minds of the American people out there. How can this be happening? So President Biden lately is talking about, well, does he have the authority to make a move on further enforcing the border? Well, it's an executive action. The laws are on the books. We've legislated on that. We've put forward funding on that. And so the president, his action is to execute and to enforce the laws that are on the books. If we would execute and enforce them properly to the fullest extent we could as a country, we wouldn't have nearly the problem that we are seeing right now. So in the meantime, we legislate here. H.R. 2 is sitting over in the Senate. I urge the senators to take that up and move in a direction that will further define and tighten our laws so we'll have a much more secure border. So with that, call your United States senators, have them move H.R. 2. Thank you for the time. I yield back.
Thank you to the gentleman from California.